You're being hired, your goals, your plans, your hopes?
Well, first of all, I'm very humbled by the Commissioner's confidence. They had a very qualified pool of applicants to draw from, and of the 5 of us who were interviewed, I know personally 4 or know of the 3 of the other 4 gentlemen, and have the highest regard for them and their qualifications, and any of them would have done an admirable job. But so therefore, I'm very humbled by the confidence that commissioners have showed. I am keenly aware of the tumultuous times that our county has been through in the last few years, and am very honored to be getting ready to work with what I feel is a very seasoned board of commissioners who are serious. And Mr. Wrigley is just rejoining the board, but 2 of the commissioners having really helped the county weather some very tough times. So I look forward. I think for the first time in a long time, we have a period of stability upcoming that we can try to rebuild our county, and I look forward to working with them. I'm going to have huge shoes to fill with Mr. Hankey. Outgoing. He's been here 5 years through, I think, count 7 commissioners, and so he has also been very responsible for keeping the ship from tipping over, and through some thankless times and long sleepless nights. But he's promised me to not turn his cell phone off for a few months, so I'm going to hold him to that.
Well, what in your background do you think put you in a position to gain the employment as chief administrator?
That's a fair question, Marty. I think had I not been a former county auditor and kind of know what I'm getting into, I don't think I would have ventured to apply for this position. That background and experience, frankly, will be invaluable. Just the funding structure of county government, knowing all the different revenue streams, and of course there's going to be a learning curve in any new position, but I think that really is going to lower the learning curve with that prior experience and knowledge.
One of the chief duties, as I've figured out the time I've covered the commissioners, which is several years now, is the budgeting process.
Correct.
And some hard decisions have to be made. You're going to run into county officials who aren't real pleased with the commissioner's position on the funding of their particular agency. And do you anticipate that it's going to be a continuing back and forth, and you're going to have to develop some skills dealing with people who actually were elected on their own? And so how do you think that's going to work out?
Well, obviously the commissioners every year have the tough policy decisions of making those judgment calls of what is going to get funded and to what levels. Some things are really not discretionary. Some things are, and I think that even when times aren't as tough, which we're nowhere near that, but there's always policy choices that have to be made that folks don't always agree with. But frankly, I would be the representative of the commissioners. I'm not making those final calls, but I certainly would be part of that process. But I'm willing to talk to anybody, agree or disagree. So I don't anticipate that people's positions would make it any harder for me to talk to those folks.
How old are you?
38.
And do you have a birthday coming up anytime this week?
July. No, not this week.
Do you still live in Alliance?
I do.
And in addition to being a one-time auditor as an appointee, were you on Alliance City Council?
I was. Elected 3 different times. First ward, that's the north side of Alliance.
And are you an attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you presently Director of Guardian Ad Litem Program for
Stark County Family
Court?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can you talk a little bit about what you do in that job? I don't know what you do.
A lot of people will have that same question. When in our specific, there really are three ways that guardian services are delivered in the state of Ohio. Some are only attorneys appointed. Some are standalone nonprofit organizations that provide volunteer guardians when Children's Services gets involved and files an official complaint. And some are a quasi hybrid of the two. For instance, Summit County has a guardian office that is staffed with court employees, but they have a nonprofit arm which helps fund some of their activities, and they have volunteers as well. In Stark County, when Child Services files either a neglect or a dependency complaint and officially gets involved in the family's life, the court appoints a volunteer guardian ad litem. We call them CASAs, court-appointed special advocates, as opposed to attorneys. Attorneys also serve as guardian ad litems, but those are on the abuse cases and also in private custody disputes. Really, our role is the same, and that is to speak for the best interests of the children, talk to everybody in the child's life, the care provider, the doctors, the school teachers, the counselors, and give a picture to the court of, number one, what's going on with the child, and number two, what the guardian feels should happen with the child going forward, both living arrangements and maybe needing counseling or trauma assessments, what have you. Our pool of volunteer guardians, our CASAs, right in the range of 70, 75 volunteers, and then there are approximately 50 plus attorneys who are also approved to serve as guardians ad litem in the court in those other types of cases that I mentioned.
And what was your salary in that position, annual salary?
I think we're at 55.
55.
And I did have, and still do, but would be greatly curtailed, a private law practice on the side.
So you plan to keep that going?
Very, very minimal, only transactional items. I intend it almost to be non-existent at this point. The time won't allow that.
Which non-existent? Your attorney practice?
Yes.
Are you keeping the director's position with the guardian ad litem?
Oh, no, ma'am. I would have to, yeah, I'm going to have to see that.
Are they looking for a new director now?
I would assume that they'll be doing that soon, yes, that's correct.
What's your salary as administrator?
82.5 to start, and there's a probationary period. We would move to 85 at that point after 90 days.
Do you have a vision for the chief administrator positions going forward?
Well, my first task really is going to be, let's find out currently where we are. Let's get a picture, a snapshot of where we are. Find out the different commissioners' priority lists of where they want to see things go in the office.
Come on in when you dump the journals.
Do a brain sync with Mike Hankey, and at that point, do an assessment. At this point, I'm going to take a learning approach and kind of see where our needs are. I know at one time, this office, the commissioner staff, there were 14 staffers, and after the really financial decimation, there's 7 staffers. People are wearing separate hats. Different hats, cross-training is much needed, successive planning, if someone were to leave or get ill, all of those are needs, and that's just here in the immediate office, not really talking about the other departments that the Commissioner's Office oversees. So there's a lot of looking and assessing to be done, and I'm going to lean pretty hard on Mr. Hankey to get me up to speed on where we're at and what fires are currently burning before I offer any proposals as far as direction.
What about with the HR department? Have you been up to speed on what commissioners want for that quite yet? Or are you just kind of
Not quite yet. I know that that's an issue that still has to be dealt with, but I know it's not been resolved, and I'm not sure what direction that's going to go, but that certainly is an outstanding issue.
Do you see the chief administrator position being 8:30 to 4:30 position?
No. Absolutely not. Early mornings, late nights. In fact, he referenced the annexation hearing tonight at 6:30 in East Canton. So I'm sure there's going to be a lot of various hours as assigned.
Are you going tonight? I'm sorry.
I am.
You're going tonight.
I figure that's something that of course, on City Council and Alliance, we dealt with annexation, so I'm familiar with the different processes that paths that it can take to this office, but being on this end is a different aspect. So as much observation as I can do. I wish I had several months with Mr. Hankey, but obviously.
Now you talked about the staff being reduced from 14 to 7.
Right.
Somewhere along the line, are you going to be taking a look at staffing and perhaps asking the commissioners to consider adding?
Well, I think obviously all of those things would have to be looked at. I think I've not been part of this year's budgetary process, but I would assume that there's some looking at the future toward that. But she made a very good point. If there's some kind of resolution regarding HR going to be made, that's probably going to be part of that whole nexus. So it might be premature to go there.
Yeah, that'll be probably part of their duties too.
Yeah,
We'll work with them on that.
I would think so. Lean pretty heavy on those folks.
I mean, they're still planning on hiring a new HR director, right?
I don't know that. I'm assuming that. I know they didn't in
They
that
didn't take
last
it off the
process,
table, yeah.
but it's, to my knowledge, that still is a project going forward.
Right.
I've not been brought.
Were you one of the applicants for that position?
I was not.
Okay.
No, I wasn't.
Can you tell me a little bit about your history with the commissioners now? I mean, obviously I know you know Janet Creighton, but what about the other two? Have you
I
dealt with
really
them at all
have
before?
had, well, Mr. Regula was, for a period of time when I was a county auditor, in fact, I think the entire time, both as the interim, as chief deputy, the interim, and then the appointee, Mr. Regula was a commissioner. We had a good working relationship at that point. I've not had the privilege to work with Mr. Burnaby, but his reputation preceded him, and I've heard nothing but good things, and I've really observed you know, a real seriousness that he has brought to you know, his position, and really steady and very analytical, gets right down, peels that onion, all the layers that go along with the issues. So looking forward to working with all of them.
Do you see your historical relationship with Commissioner Creighton as having been an advantage in the competition for this position?
No, not to the competition. It's an advantage to know how the different commissioners operate. I come from a court where there's 3 judges. I'm coming into an environment where there's 3 commissioners. Everyone has a different personality, a different way they want to consume information and hear information. And so I think that's going to be an advantage to know how she enjoys hearing that information. But I really don't feel that it put me at an advantage or disadvantage, other than I was a known quantity somewhat to some of them.
And you worked in the auditor's department when she...
I was her chief deputy for a period of time, and then when she became mayor of Canton, I was appointed as county auditor in December of 2003, and then in November of until December of 2004. So roughly 13 months.
Do you have any aspirations to get back into elective politics?
Marty, at this point, I am completely focused on this new position. I'm looking forward to it, and have no plans for public office.
Now,
In fact, this is a position that you really cannot be politically involved as the face of the commissioners. I'm very sensitive to that, serving commissioners of both parties and, frankly, citizens of both parties. So it's going to be serving the citizens and not political party.
Now, you heard Commissioner Regula express the hope that you'd be around a long time. Is that your plan?
I would certainly hope to be. You know, I understand the frustration and stress it causes to staff and also commissioners when there has to be someone that is key in their administration and office moving on with all that institutional knowledge. So I would hope to be long term, absolutely.
Can I touch on, you just mentioned how this, your role as the administrator, you can't be politically involved. I mean, can you, does that mean you're going to, kind of not be involved with the party as much just because you're in this, because you do have to work with both?
Yeah, I think you have to be very sensitive. I mean, I don't think you can run for office. I really don't think you can probably be part of any kind of committee structure. It is really a kind of scenario where you are serving both well, all the commissioners, regardless of party, and I would be very cautious and careful not to make anybody feel uncomfortable or not trust me for some reason, and so, you know, I would not plan to be politically involved.
Okay. Were you in the party before? Were you part of the structure?
At one point, I'm not
Okay,
anymore.
okay,
Yeah,
I thought
but
maybe
years
back-
ago, I was
okay.
on the central committee.
That's what I thought. Okay,
but it's
good years.
been quite a few
Republican
years.
Party?
Yes, but it's been quite a few years.
Okay, I didn't know yeah, how long you've been on or what your involvement was now, but you're not a part of any of the.
No, no resignation necessary.
Okay, okay. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
I
you
don't
too.
know
I'll
if
look
we-
for Kelly on.
Yes, yeah. I don't know if we formally met. Yes,
No, but I know you by reputation as well.
Yeah, and I've seen you in a
Appreciate
number
your
of
work.
meetings.
Actually, all